Hello, guys. Hello, viewers. Hello, my friends. Hello, everything. My name's Alberto, aka Destroyer 48, and today I'm gonna be for a Pro Wrestling Classic for my channel and for me, of course. Today is a subject matter of the greatest tag team of all time, and it is who? Who? Sound like an owl? Yeah, I know. Yeah, right. Here we go. It's of the greatest tag team of all time, the Rock and Roll Express. Now, this video's the Crockett Diaries with Rock and Roll Express. This is just my review today is not of this DVD. It is of the. Today I'm gonna talk about the Rock and Roll Express and their matches and their greatest moments and stuff like that. So this is just a biography on them. I wish I had the DVD where it has interviews with the Rock and Roll Express and some matches as well. I did look it up a while back. I just didn't get around to get to it. I really want it. I think they might have several. I'm not sure. I will look it up and I will get back with you guys about that. But let's get started. Let's jump into it, shall we, with the Rock and Roll Express. Um, I've heard of the Rock and Roll Express where they were wrestling the Midnight Express with Dennis Loverboy and Beautiful Bobby with Jim Cornette, and that was in I believe in Mid South. They had a rivalry there, and that rivalry jumped to Jim Crockett's NWA, which I will get to in a little bit. They also when in NWA the Rock and Roll Express. Oh, by the way, I'm sorry. Rock and Roll Express consists of who? Ricky and Robert. Ricky Morton and Robert Gibson. The Rock and Roll Express. So let me go. The Rock and Roll Express are going to feud with Rick Rude and Manny Fernandez over the world title belts. Um, I think that stops when Rick Rude jump. He decides to jump to WWF from NWA Jim Crockett Promotions, which I did not know for a long time. I always wanted to know about Rick Rude's career, and I already went over some of it. So actually, I went over some of it a while ago. Um, Very interesting enough. I heard Ricky Morton. I think it was Ricky Morton, or I don't know. It could have been Robert Gibson. They were talking about that back in the day they were wrestling LOD, Road Warriors, Legion of Doom. I think those matches are pretty hard to find. If anybody can find those matches, I'd like to watch them. I'm gonna go over it again, but Ricky and Robert do wrestle the Road Wars, but in WWE. I'm gonna get to that later on. But I would like if anybody knows if there's video out there where Ricky and Rock and Roll Express wrestle the Road Warriors in the early '80s, and I don't know what promotion it would be. I don't think it was NWA. It's probably in the other smaller promotions, like maybe Continental something. Please let me know if you have that footage. I am interested in knowing about that footage. It'd be awesome. I will say about when they Rock and Roll Express did wrestle the Road Warriors in WWE, which I'll get to again later. It was very short. I want to see them wrestle the Road Warriors in the early '80s in Continental, wherever, wrestling the Road Warriors. That'd be an awesome match. Anyways, like I was talking about, they did wrestle Rick Rude and Manny Fernandez, NWA Jim Crockett till Rick Rude jumped to WWE, jumped ship. So that ended that feud. These guys, I will mention several times. Rock and Roll Express wrestled the Midnight Express with Jim Cornette a whole, I want to say millions of times, a whole bunch of times. First was, then this is going to go on to, um, with Beautiful Bobby and Dennis Conrad, not Dennis Loverboy Conrad or whatever they called him. And then later on, with Beautiful Bobby and Sweet Stan. Well, of course, with Jim Cornette. They're going to be wrestling them a lot, but the biggest feuds I ever heard them really having is with the Russians. That's going to be around the same time. The Rock and Roll Express will wrestle the Russians, consisting of Ivan Koloff and Nikita Koloff. Which one's the Russian Nightmare? I think it's Nikita Koloff. Wow, so they're gonna wrestle the Russians, which they're pretty buff, man. They're pretty built, and Nikita's awesome, man. He's super powerful and looks good and all that stuff. He's right up there with the Road Warriors. One of the few guys at the time I remember could get really match power with the Road Warriors. And Ivan Koloff he's legendary for beating Bruno Sammartino for the world title. So Ivan Koloff, he's an ex-world champion. So wow. So Ricky and Robert do wrestle the Russians. They even wrestle the Russians in a steel cage, and they're always against power tag teams. They're gonna use their quickness and speed. And before I forget, I'm gonna mention one of the moves they usually do is that one of the Russians, like Nikita Koloff, will pick them up like this, right, and then the other one would come and jump and drop kick his own partner in the back just to make him fall, like a Russian. Let's say it's Nikita Koloff. They do that several times. It's pretty awesome. So they wrestle the Russians. I did see when they wrestled the Russians in a steel cage match. Pretty awesome stuff. Same thing. They're always going to rely on their speed and quickness. They're going to utilize their special move is what? The double drop kick. And it was a pretty entertaining match. It's a fun match. A lot of sunset flips, stuff like that. Double team tag. They use their speed and they work as a tag team very well. And I know they defeat the Russians for the belts, for the NWA World Tag belts. The Rock and Roll Express also start feuding with the Horsemen in some tag matches. Ricky Morton, I don't know if y'all know this. Ricky Morton, I did not know this until I saw it. I think it was in this interview. Let me say this because y'all may not know this because I didn't know. The Crockett Diaries with Ricky and Rock and Roll Express. And maybe in this one or maybe another, we have to look it up. I will let you guys know. I will see it again and show you. I haven't seen it in a while, but Ricky Morton claims to beat Ric Flair for the title and had it for one day, and then he had to give the title back up. And he has a picture where he has the world title. Not the tag titles, the world title. I did not know that. And there's a picture that he shows that has evidence that he has a strap on his waist. The World Heavyweight Champ, but he had to relinquish it real quick, like in a day or 2 days, something like that. Look it up, man. And I will let you know if it's in this one, or I know if it was in this one, it was an interview on YouTube. I watch a lot of YouTube. So yeah, they're feuding with the Horsemen. Who remembers the world famous locker room scene? Ricky and Robert, they're in the back in the locker room. Horsemen come and jump them, and they're beating up both of them. But Ricky Morton gets the worst of it because they start getting the Horsemen get Ricky's face, and they start smothering his face, and they get him on the floor to smother his face on the concrete and mess up his face. And then the matches after that, he has to wrestle with a face mask on. That's brutal stuff, man. So that feud was up there, man. I mean, that's some crazy stuff. I mean, I know there's scenes like that where wrestlers get hurt real bad in a brawl in the back, whatever. But this is a one that really stands out around that time, where the Horsemen are wiping his face on the floor. Real bad, injuring his nose, and yet they have to put a mask on. when he wrestles after that against anybody, or especially the Horseman. He's shown with a mask wrestling the Horseman as well because he messed up his face really bad. After the feud with the Horseman, I think they're always wrestling the Midnight. They're wrestling with the Midnight Express. I believe they traded belts at the time too. The world tag team belts. Back to the Horsemen. Ricky and Robert, the Rock and Roll Express, wrestle the Horsemen of the tag team with Arn Anderson and Ole Anderson. There's some good matches. They're wrestling Arn Anderson, an up-and-coming star. They're wrestling Ole Anderson as a ex-world tag team champion and a serious veteran. You know, he's older, but he's a serious veteran. He knows what he's doing. They both tag teams wrestle in a cage as well. Very brutal stuff. I'm going to give Ole and Arn an edge in the power. Rocket and Roll Express are going to give him an edge in speed. Speed and agility. And good. And we're gel as a tag team well together. They've already been world tag champions. So they go against Ole and Arn. Rock and Roll Express with Ole and Arn in the cage match. I believe the one I saw, Rock and Roll Express come out victorious. They defended their belts well. But then they're going to end up losing their belts to Ole and Arn Anderson. And I think that's the last major feud I see out of them. When they wrestle wimpy tag teams, they use their speed. They use their double drop kick to win matches. Major matches and against the wimpy wrestlers, unknown wrestlers. There was a montage I saw in the early 80s. Early 90s. It was of the Rock and Roll Express. I saw them using a lot of, especially Robert Gibson was using a lot of mat work on wimpy tag teams, but he would wrestle them. He would spin on their backs, like amateur wrestling, cool stuff like that, like going to basics. I was really impressed by that. It looked really good. And their double drop kick looked awesome. And I would even see them climb up opponents. Like, literally, the opponents are standing, and then they find a way. I saw it like once or twice. They find a way to climb up the opponent and do a move. I remember they like to use the victory roll. That was a cool move too. Ricky Morton, when he was getting beat up by the Midnight Express or other big time opponents, he always reached out to the crowd. Help me! Like to the fans, help me! And they get the fans all riled up. Before I forget, man, those days the Rock and Roll Express would get a lot of girls. I mean, they get a lot of fans, a lot of girls. They were the most popular in the NWA. Some people are going to argue that, but no, you can't. They were even more popular than, even though a lot of people hated Ric Flair, everybody knew Ric Flair was champion. People liked them, the fans liked them more than Ric Flair. Wow. They were more popular than Dusty Rhodes. Dusty Rhodes. How many people were more popular than Dusty Rhodes back then? Maybe Hulk Hogan, yeah. But according to this video, they left Jim Crockett Promotions because these guys are making crazy money. They were getting paid pretty good money. And Jim Crockett Promotions looked like they were gobbling up most of the money these guys were making. So these guys argued, Rock and Roll Express argued, hey, where's the rest of our money, man? We make you tons of money. You need to pay us a little bit more. You need to pay us more of that cheese we're talking about. And from what I heard, Jim Crockett Promotions didn't want to pay them more. So they're like, bye. And then these guys went to the AWA, from what I read. But they're going to come back. The Rock and Roll Express will come back. They do come back. I believe they come back in the. They come back to. It's supposed to be NWA, but I think it's already changed to WCW. Jim Crockett Promotions has already folded, so now they're dealing with WCW with Ted Turner. They come back. I remember them wrestling. They're gonna wrestle with a heel tag team, the Bad Guys. I remember them wrestling when they come back. The Freebirds. So now they feud with the Freebirds. In interviews, the Freebirds and the Rock and Roll Express, they're talking smack about each other. Okay? So they do some matches. I'm sure they did some house shows. And for y'all that don't know what house shows means, they just said wrestling matches that don't appear on TV. They come out on television matches as well. And they get into a feud where they're gonna have a big feud over the Freebirds. They're mad at each other, and they agree they're gonna be in a strap match. The Freebirds at that time, well, I'm just gonna mention the ones at the time. They're feuding with the Freebirds, consisting of Michael Hayes and what's his name? Jimmy Garvin. The other Freebirds, Bam Bam Gordy and Roberts, they are not there. So it's just now we got the Rock and Roll Express going against Michael Hayes and Jimmy Jam Garvin. They decide they're gonna have a strap match. Straps, I guess, is like leather belts or whatever. I think they have two of them or something. They're gonna wrestle each other in a tag match. So they do the tag match, and oh my gosh, I was watching my friends on video. I had rented the tape, and then the Freebirds, they get the advantage, and they use the straps on the back, hitting either Robert or Ricky in the back, and they're like, and the Rock and Roll just get hit. They're like, ow, ow, they're getting hit by the Freebirds, ow. But it changes to the advantage of the Rock and Roll Express. Now they got the straps, and one of the Rock and Roll Express, they're belting with the straps. They're hitting Michael Hayes, and Michael Hayes' back is going, ah. He's getting hit by he's jumping up and down like, ah. Me and my friends started laughing, man. It was one of the funniest things I've ever seen. That was funny. It was hilarious. But you gotta see it, man. I think it's gonna be a match from the early '90s. It's gonna be in a pay-per-view, so I need to look it up. One of the funniest things I've ever seen. And I believe the Rock and Roll Express win that match with the Freebirds. I think, I'm not sure. It's been a while. So that feud ends, and then I just remember they're feuding against Doom, and powerful tag team with Theodore R. Long as their manager, aka Peanut Head. That's what the fans would call him. They feud with Doom, and I believe they even feud with them for the Doom is the champions at the time. And they're using all their quick moves on Doom. It's working and stuff. But at the end, Doom gets the win, defending their belts successfully against the Rock and Roll Express. After that, I heard Robert Gibson, he gets injured. And Ricky has to wrestle on his own, and it gets really bad after that. Ricky Morton joins the York Foundation, some group. I think it's run by Alexandria York. It's also consisting of Terry Taylor and some other wrestlers. The Rock and Roll Express, they're still in WCW. That's what it looks like. Ricky has to wrestle without Robert. After that, Robert comes back, but they kind of like disappear and start wrestling in small promotions and stuff like that. But they wrestled. I don't think they wrestled to this day. I hope not. I think they are It's already 2023. They had to be at least wrestling in 2020. I saw that Ricky Morton, he did a dangerous move at an old age. Man, he did what's it called, Canadian Destroyer move. I mean, that's very. I mean, he's older. He could get hurt quick. I mean, it's still crazy. Let's show this still crazy. Uh, by the way, when they were wrestling Doom and the Freebirds, they were still wrestling the Midnight Express all over the place. Still, they wrestled them till either tag team left the promotion first. I don't know, was it Midnight Express or them? Oh, I'm sorry. Then the Rock and Roll Express, they went to WWE. The Rock and Roll Express did work or wrestle in Smoky Mountain Wrestling, run by Jim Cornette. I think they had a feud with the Heavenly Bodies. And then they went to WWE. I think they feuded with the Heavenly Bodies over there as well. Here is where they wrestled the Road Wars. And I was like, looked it up. I was like, yeah, man. But that tag team, the Rock and Roll Express, they could have been managed by Jim Cornette and WWE as well. I don't remember. I think they were. They wrestled the Road Warriors. Horrible match. Horrible. I expected for that match to work. The Rock and Roll Express had to put their moves in. I don't remember them putting that much moves. I remember the Road Warriors beat them up a lot. I think Robert Gibson got a couple of moves in. It was a horrible match. I mean, that was a dream match for me to see. Because in Jim Crockett Promotions, the Rock and Roll Express versus the Road Warrior would have been a dream match. They were not going to wrestle each other because I don't think the promotion let the good guys face the good guys. It's usually the good guys face the heels or the heels feel the good guys. It's very rare we got heel tag team versus another heel tag team and a good guy tag team versus a good tag team. So Rock and Roll Express with wrestling the Road Warriors and Jim Crockett Promotion would have been a dream match. I think a lot of people would have liked it. They would have had to be a good match though, but it didn't happen. They're wrestling to this day. I kind of lost touch with them. I didn't even know they were still wrestling. But man, I think these guys, they probably made fans yell and scream more than any other tag team. That's why I call these guys the greatest tag team of all time. All right, so that's gonna do it for my Ricky Morton and Robert Gibson, the Rock and Roll Express. I'm gonna end my review with that. I mean, greatest tag team of all time. You can't argue about it. Go look it up. How crazy the fans went over these guys. I mean, it's crazy. So that's the end of my review for the Rock and Roll Express. Ricky and Robert, the greatest tag team of all time. I hope you enjoyed my review, and I hope you see my other reviews to come. I'm gonna say this what I say for all my videos when I remember. The world will never be a perfect place, but we can all make it better. From the greatest tag team of all time, the Rock and Roll Express. From me, your host, Alberto, aka Destroyer 48. If you like my content, go ahead and subscribe to my channel if you like. And I will see you next time on my next review. Bye. Love you.